My parents treated me like a failure because I wasn't my sister. 10 years later, they wanted back into my life. Too late. It's been over a decade since I left home, but I still remember exactly how it felt to be treated like the defective one. My parents never said it directly, but it was clear from the way they looked at me, talked about me, and compared everything I did to my sister. She was their pride. I was tolerated. She got the straight A certificates on the fridge, the new clothes every school year, the encouragement, the cheers from the sidelines. I got shrugs. I got silence. I got lectures for not trying hard enough, even when I was doing my best. She got private lessons and a birthday party every year. I got told we couldn't afford extra things. Somehow they always found a way for her. By the time I hit middle school, I stopped showing them anything I was proud of. There was no point. If it wasn't impressive by their standards, it didn't matter. I was invisible unless I made a mistake. When I messed up, suddenly I existed again, as a problem. It was like living in a constant audit. Every move judged, measured, dismissed. If I brought home a B, it was a disappointment. If I made a team, it was a waste of time. If I said I was struggling, it was just an excuse. Nothing I did ever measured up because I wasn't her. I moved out at 18 with a used duffel bag and enough cash to maybe last 2 weeks. No one helped me pack. No one asked where I was going. I could have vanished off the planet and they wouldn't have noticed until they needed someone to blame for something. I worked back-to-back shifts to cover rent on a basement room that reeked of mildew. I shared a bathroom with 3 strangers and ate whatever I could afford. Sometimes I slept in the back of the store where I worked because I couldn't make it home without collapsing. No safety net, no calls, no visits, not even a text to ask if I was alive. Meanwhile, my sister was still the center of their world. They paid her tuition, her rent, her utilities. She failed a few classes and blamed the professors. They believed her. She switched majors 3 times and still got praise for finding her path. I didn't even tell them when I got into school. I paid for it myself. Worked full-time while studying. No one sent care packages. No one came to my graduation. Years passed. I didn't post updates. I didn't show off milestones. I was too busy surviving. Slowly, I built a life. Finished my degree, got promoted, then switched fields. Saved every cent I could. Bought a used car. Eventually bought a place. I got so used to doing everything alone that I forgot people were supposed to care. Then one day, I heard from them. 10 years of silence. And suddenly my parents wanted to reconnect. No apology, no explanation. Just a sudden interest once they realized my sister wasn't doing great. She moved back in with them. Dropped out again. Couldn't hold a job. Started blaming everyone but herself. That's when they remembered me. They showed up at my office unannounced. Walked in like it was normal. Like we'd kept in touch. Looked around like they were trying to measure how much I was worth now. They smiled too much. Said the right things. I didn't say much back. I just watched them try to pretend they'd always been proud of me. They weren't. They weren't there when I had nothing. They weren't there when I worked until I collapsed. They weren't there when I cried alone in a room I could barely afford. But now that things looked shiny from the outside, they wanted in. They didn't get to have that. After they showed up at my office, I started remembering things I thought I'd buried. Like the night I overheard them saying they didn't know what to do with me. Like I was some defective project they were tired of fixing. Or the day I got an award at school and my dad asked if my sister had already gotten one before he decided whether it was a big deal. They'd spent years chipping away at whatever confidence I had left. Quietly, casually, like it was nothing. It wasn't abuse in the traditional sense. It was indifference. It was erasure. It was death by 1,000 comparisons. I used to think I'd eventually prove them wrong and they'd come around. That maybe if I worked hard enough, earned enough, achieved enough, they'd finally see me. But when they stood in front of me in that office, all smiles, all fake warmth, I realized they didn't come because they were proud. They came because their favorite failed and they needed a new bet. They'd always loved the image more than the actual people behind it. As long as my sister looked successful, they treated her like gold. But when that cracked, they needed someone else to prop up as proof that their parenting worked. And suddenly, the child they ignored became the backup plan. I didn't give them what they came for. After they left, I went home and started writing things down. Every memory, every time they dismissed me, every moment I sat alone at some school event while they were off with her. I didn't do it for closure. I did it because I needed to remind myself that I wasn't crazy, that it happened, that it was real, that the sudden shift in tone didn't rewrite the past. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from my mom, handwritten. She hadn't done that since I was in elementary school. She called me strong and inspiring and said they were grateful I turned out so well, like I was a plant they forgot to water and now wanted credit for growing wild. I didn't respond. I knew what was coming next. The favors, the requests, the emotional bait. A month later, it came. They wanted help with my sister. She'd racked up debt. She was depressed. She was acting out. And they thought maybe I could talk to her. Maybe I could guide her. Maybe I could fix what they couldn't. That was the moment I stopped feeling angry. It shifted into something colder. Not pity, not forgiveness, just distance. They hadn't changed. They'd just run out of options, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back in now that I had something they wanted. I blocked their numbers. I told my office not to let them in again. I made it clear without ever saying a word that I wasn't available. Not for advice, not for handholding, not for playing the responsible sibling to clean up their mess. I wasn't going to parent the family that abandoned me. The truth was, I didn't care what happened to them anymore. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need them to understand what they'd done. I didn't even need an apology. I just wanted them gone. Out of my space, out of my life. They'd had years to know me. They chose not to. Now they could sit in the wreckage of their own design. Let their golden child figure it out. Let them finally feel what it's like to be ignored, forgotten, unhelped. Cutting them off wasn't a big dramatic scene. No screaming, no breakdown, no last phone call where I told them how much they hurt me. I just disappeared the same way they once ignored me. Quiet. Final. They tried a few more times, a few emails, a Christmas card, a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. I never listened to it. I didn't care what it said. At that point, they weren't people to me anymore. They were a system I escaped from. A system that only wanted me back once I was useful. Word got around through extended family that I was doing well. Better than well. Own place, own business, financially solid, traveling, no debt, no drama, just moving forward quietly, on my own terms. Then the messages shifted. They didn't want me just to help my sister anymore. They wanted to rebuild the family, as if there was anything left to rebuild, as if I was the one who walked away from something whole. They pretended like the past had just been a rough patch, like the years of silence, neglect, and favoritism were some misunderstanding. They never brought up specifics, never mentioned what they did. That was the pattern. Pretend it wasn't that bad. Hope I'd eventually come around. Guilt me into being the good daughter they never actually raised. And for a while I thought maybe I should say something. Not to reconnect, just to make sure they knew. But the more I sat with it, the clearer it became. They already knew. They just didn't care until they had to. I wasn't holding on to bitterness. I wasn't stuck in the past. I had just evolved past the need to explain myself to people who'd already decided who I was before I had a chance to become anything. The final straw came when my parents told a distant cousin that they were so proud of me, bragged about me even, threw around my job title, talked about how I'd overcome so much, framed it like they were part of the journey. That's when I knew I made the right call. They hadn't changed. They'd just rewritten the story. In their version, they were the supportive ones, the ones who never gave up, the ones who raised 2 daughters, one of whom just took a little longer to shine. They needed that version because the real one made them look like failures. And the only thing they hate more than being ignored is being exposed. I didn't respond to the cousin. I didn't correct the story. I didn't send screenshots or call anyone out. I didn't need to. Because I know the truth. I lived it. I still do. I've built a life where I don't flinch when my phone rings, where I don't have to shrink myself to keep the peace, where I don't need permission to exist. They're not part of it. They chose who to pour their energy into. And when that person collapsed under the weight of being the favorite, they looked around for someone to fix it.